would be nice just to keep the conversation going with the community members. I agree with Gord as well, finding that balance. That's all.
Okay. And Gord in finance?
Well, if I understand correctly, we didn't get the money.
Yes, and that does bring me to a point, is that the RFAB was fairly involved in coming up with the requirements for the facility and everything else, but we didn't really get the feedback or the financial end of considerations when we were. We all just read in the paper that our application was turned down, and I think, yes.
Yeah, if I can be, that's all we received was just a letter. There was no feedback really. It was just that we were unsuccessful in the application. So that's something we can pursue still from the province, but there's nothing that was being held back from RFAB.
Okay, that's good, because it did say in the application itself that we would hear what was done right and what was done wrong. And I was sitting with bated breath trying to figure out, okay, for the next swing at the bat, what do we need to do different?
Something tells me the province is probably a little busy with COVID too. So I think it's probably changed a lot of things that had happened. I mean, we also thought we were going to hear a lot sooner than what we did. So, I think it's delayed, but there's nothing nefarious going on there. We don't know anymore. There's nothing being held back other than we weren't successful.
If I could,
Paul, I just want to say that in hindsight, it probably would have been more of a common courtesy from the county if we would have personally sent an email out to the RFAB committee prior to you having to read it in the paper.
Yeah, that brings a little bit of the communications aspect back, and maybe I shouldn't have left Sue's comments quite so quickly. In rereading our terms of reference, the last paragraph of our terms of reference does suggest a little better feedback between staff and our RFAB. We're supposed to receive our minutes via email as well from every one of these meetings. And in talking to some other members, I don't think any of us have received them ever. So it would be nice to have a little better communication between staff and ourselves moving forward.
I agree.
And
Paul, if I can just add a comment, this is Gordon, on the finance aspect.
yes.
And this is just maybe just some insight. Some people that were very large supporters of the hub, community supporters, and groups that supported it, I have had conversations with, and my sense is that some of those that were interested in supporting the hub financially in terms of the fundraising efforts that would be required, there maintains energy in that way for whatever plan B or C or D might be. And looking forward, yes, there has been some businesses and some individuals that have been financially injured quite a bit by COVID and the repercussions, but there's also those that are still able and interested in supporting such a cause, and there still is energy there. There is also the view that as we emerge from COVID, whenever that might be, that there's an expectation of potential future infrastructure dollars, and that we should be prepared for such intakes when the time emerges for whatever the plan B or C might be. So my sense from the finance side of things, that some significant potential donors and supporters, they haven't gone away and are continue to be encouraged depending upon what plan B might look like.
Well said. Comments? Very good. I'd like to call on somebody from county staff to give us a report on the existing Simcoe facilities, just so we're all brought up to speed as to what exactly has happened in the last 6 months with our facilities. Not necessarily all the whys, but some whys would be good too. But just to help put the overall context of recreation in Norfolk County out there, so that we all are kind of re-baselined here.
Okay.
Bill, I'm going to look to you virtually.
Okay. Thank you, Paul, Chairman Paul. Yeah, I guess, in March, I would say everything was closed down. Since then, we started this summer, let's say, with the introduction of summer ice. We're close with our user groups. I think we had a very successful, board member Malo can help me, but I believe it was set up for a 5-week program. We actually ended up going the 6th week, so we got our got Waterford up and running for summer ice. So obviously it's open for minor sports, which started last week. Port Dover Arena is open, and minor sports started last week. And Delhi Arena is open, and minor sports started last week. Dealing with the Langton minor sports, and when I say minor sports, I mean both figure skating and hockey. That arena is open to be opened on I believe it's the 5th of October is a Monday. And we do have a report going not tomorrow, but the 22nd to council. Obviously, the adult hockey leagues we didn't include in our initial startup. There was some miscommunication, but however, the report, we will straighten that out. Likely out of that report, depending on the numbers of people we get from adult hockey, we're back to minor sports. We're still waiting to finalize numbers. There's a very good chance that Talbot Gardens will be opened up. Again, that will be in the report to council when they read that. The pool is scheduled to open for the 8-hour shifts, as Chairman Paul had mentioned, on October 5th. We also have a report going on the 22nd to deal with senior centers and as well community halls. And rec programming will be a future report probably in a few weeks on just how we move forward with that. Obviously, the other big news I think was the Simcoe seniors, moving to the rec center. That was discussed again, and ice has not been put in the rec center in anticipation of moving the seniors in or getting things ready. This summer we did open up baseball fields. And a little later, we've also had some success, not with minor sports for soccer, but we did have a co-ed, I don't know what they call themselves, adults group came in. They are using the soccer field this fall out on West Street. And tennis courts were open this summer as COVID, or as we went into different phases of opening with the province. Splash pads were open this summer. I'm thinking if that's what you're after, Mr. Chairman, that's about where we are. If I missed your point, just let me know. I can go into further explanation.
No, I think you covered the titles of everything there. That was good. The one thing I was always reflecting on over the last 6 months as we've been sitting on this is seeing both of Simcoe's arenas shut down. Trying to digest that when we were trying to convince everybody that we needed 2 more arenas. It's nice to hear that Talbot is planning to reopen very soon, or will be proposed to reopen very soon. That's good.
Yeah, and I guess my only comment on that, Chair, would be, it came out that both Simcoe arenas were shut down. Well, obviously the rec center, the ice surface, and won't be going back in. But as far as Talbot, I mean, like I said, we still don't have our finalized numbers from all user groups, as well as, on the other side of things, COVID is now going to put us in a position, if we're just banking on what we did in Waterford this year the summer was a success. Every hour of ice rental or user group in there, we're going to have 15 minutes in between to do our COVID cleaning. So in that, it actually tightens up the amount of time, or there'll be less available ice to users. But until we get the all the users on board with their scheduled hours, we weren't really sure how many arenas we needed. Obviously, we didn't want to open an arena just to open it, put the ice in if the need wasn't there. And it's slowly coming. I mean, that we are going to need to open Talbot, but we also do have to get some more, final numbers. But it is leading towards that. At first, there were a lot of groups that were not, didn't want to come back, and obviously, our interpretation of the provincial guidelines where the adult users, shouldn't be on there, at least to start things out. But we've reviewed that and took in council's direction, and that report will go on the 22nd. So I just determined that both in Simcoe were shut down. I guess they Talbot wasn't open, but Talbot also, when facility folks did their COVID inspections, I'll call it, it's got some, I think the terms are pinch points where traffic flow doesn't work. So that's why it was set down for one of the last ones to open. That's all I want then.
I just wanted to ask a question. The term many user groups did not want to return. What user groups are we speaking of that didn't want to return to the ice?
Through the chair, it was, and like even with the pool, there were certain people that were, I think I said in council, we need to know what the county's doing for COVID because this thing is serious and I'm not that comfortable coming back. It was the same with some hockey users. I mean, as we get our return to play protocol together, and that will be part of the report, Councillor Huffman, on the 22nd that we will send. And I think that's information and fairness that these users need to know ahead of time because some just want to rush back and others are cautious with the pandemic. So they just want to make sure that what we have in place, they feel comfortable with. And that was my point.
Okay.
We need to give them more information because there are a lot of people that, with the pandemic, they're uneasy about going back into public buildings and sharing their space with people. So we have to come out with our return protocols, and that I think that does help them.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Anybody else?
I have a question, actually. Just listening to and knowing about the hockey and hearing about that some user groups aren't getting their time, and that my concern is closing even the rec center. And I know that the seniors were going in there, but has anyone ever thought of putting the seniors at the odd where there is heating already there? They're not on a hard surface. They're not having to use an elevator. And then that way we would be able to, with the new COVID terms, with the 15 minutes, we would be able to help get ice time and making sure that all user groups are available. Like there's time for everybody. It's just a point of concern that I kind of thought of in the part of, we have this empty building. We have the fairgrounds that Norfolk is known for. And I know that they're not hosting the fair this year, and it would be an idea to put them there. And I know that there's groups that use it at night, but it could be a working solution with every group. I don't know if there's been conversations or if that's one way that the RFAB could work together to come up with creative solutions for our recreation facilities.
Well, Sue, that's a half good point in that Andy told us to keep out of the hockey arena opening swim lane. However, we can certainly discuss the senior center and making them as comfortable as they can be. And I think your proposal about the odd is a good one, and one that I'd like to ask staff if they fully explored with the Fair Board. Bill?
Yeah, I guess just back, even though we don't want to go to the hockey thing, I mean, if it came out of if I said it or led to that way, I don't right now see a shortage presently with ice scheduling. We may run into a team that historically played in one arena may have to go to another arena. Their times may be changed, but again, I don't have all that information. As far as the odd, yes, it is owned by the Fair Board or the Agricultural Society. True, they're not having a fair this fall. However, they do have many events in the odd through the year. You know, the Eat Drink Norfolks, the trade shows, the sport, all the shows they have. So, I mean, there was talk on that, but again, we county doesn't own the building. So I think, you know, in fairness, if that was the direction we wanted to take, we would have to have that talk with the fair board. We do rent it at times for the walking groups. And so we do have a good relationship with them, but to take that over for long term or even for a year, I think it's part of a bigger talk, because presently with COVID, yeah, they're probably not going to be able to have their events there. But if COVID did go away, they're going to want to get that building back for the use of all of their own events. So it's been, you know, chatted about, but I think the council's decision and staff were, if we own the rec center, this is where it is. This is where we'll put the seniors. And if, you know, direction in the future is different, we have a really good working relationship with the fair board. We could approach that or address that in a more serious manner.
If I could as well, Paul, I think that the seniors themselves, I think they're very excited about going into the rec center. You know, I've spoken with the president. He's been down there. He's toured with Bill. He's toured with Jason. You know, they're starting to move forward on plans, you know, for the conversion on the ice and so on. Like, I think that at a certain point, you know, we have to, that's the decision that council made. In fact, it went through a reconsideration even and slowed things down, but that's a decision that's been made, and now staff is out there, you know, executing on that decision. And I think that the seniors, at least all of the ones that I've spoken to, including the president, you know, are very excited about that move and about the promise that facility can offer. And like Bill said, when we say the additional 15 minutes, you know, when you look at other municipalities, ice registrations are down in all sports, not just hockey. I mean, in all sports, registrations are down. You know, it could be financial commitments from some people that, you know, due to their jobs or their businesses or so on, can't afford it. But it's also, you know, some people are, you know, generally extremely cautious. And so, you know, I don't, like Bill, it's not that I could stand to be corrected at the end of the year, but I really don't think that we're going to get into a situation, you know, as we start taking on more and more registrations, that 5 arenas is not going to be sufficient to meet demand.
Well, I'm certainly going to stick into my swim lane here and only talk about the seniors aspect of the arena. I'm just wondering though, was the intention of council to use this as a permanent location for the seniors? And the reason I ask is the senior center now off the table in any future Plan B discussions?
Well, I suppose nothing is off the table for, you know, for eternity. I mean, things can change, but I think, are the seniors looking to this to be a real home for them for the foreseeable future, at least? Yeah, I do. I mean, we're going to spend some time doing some renovations in there. They're engaged in that process. You know, they're working with Bill. They're touring with Bill. They're, you know, laying out their requirements. You know, they're also the agreement. It'll be for the use of the general community in the evenings. And, you know, if we look at, you know, building out a long-term plan here, 5 years, 10 years down the road, that could change. That's possible. But, you know, for the county to go on and take, you know, to say, well, we're going to start leasing additional buildings or doing additional stuff. I mean, it doesn't even make sense when we have a building that's there and ready for them to use. And we've already been through the reconsideration process on the arena side. So that's where their home is for now. And they're excited about it.
Okay, so circling back then to items 5, 6, and 7. Sorry, the items 5 and 6 of our agenda. Then I guess the hockey is off the table and the senior center is solved for the medium term. So really, we're focused on a pool in terms of our plan.
Paul, it's Gordon here.
Yes, go ahead, Gordon.
If I could, I've just been listening to, I've got a number of points jotted down here. If I can share a few thoughts. And I'm just where you left off. I think that there needs to be a little bit more fine tuning as to what what is in and outside of our realm of discussion in RFAB with regards to arenas, because if it's council's direction on the RFP that we not be involved, then that's their direction. But that isn't everything to do with arenas. Programming could be one, for example, and how things are handled. So I guess I go all the way back to, there were the comments with regards to the success of summer ice. It was a success. It was 100% utilized right up to the last week. It was also very costly, but it got off the ground and was a success. But I think one thing that could be learned from that, and where RFAB going forward could be helpful, is summer ice wasn't going to happen. And a comment was made in a council meeting that no interest had been expressed with regards to summer ice at one point. And a bunch of us that are in the hockey world just about fell off our chair. And because summer ice was originally planned for, it was possible by the protocols. And so there was an expectation that it would just happen. And with that comment, it was realized it wasn't just going to happen. And so what ended up happening was the users who for summer ice are not organized like minor hockey is in the fall and figure skating, etc., had to communicate with staff and reach out and organize themselves in a concerted effort and demonstrate a combined demand to justify opening an arena and having summer ice, etc. And it was a significant effort. But when you look at that and you look at then winter ice, etc., and how difficult it is to determine from user perspective what ice is available and how it's being organized, I think that there can be a much better platform for communication between the county and user groups so that users find it easier. They're able to identify what opportunities there are for use and to be able to subscribe for that use. And that comes out of a report, I think the 2015 rec report talking about, online bookings, etc. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think there's a place for RFAB to flesh out those ideas a little bit to make sure that we have the facilities, we have the ability to make sure that our residents are engaged in activities within our facilities. So how do we maximize that? So that's just one comment coming out of summer ice that also feeds itself into regular ice that I think users learned a lot from, and I think that there's real opportunity there and RFAB could be engaged. I'll leave that comment. With regards to Bill's comments on the arenas and the September 22nd report, I would only ask Bill, and some information has already been shared, that Norfolk Minor Hockey has been advised how much ice time will be available in Langton beyond what's already being spoken for in Langton once it opens in October. And we are going to be short in excess of 20 hours between the four arenas. So there's 53 hours of available ice with each arena that opens with the current staff shift structure and the 15 minutes of cleaning, etc. So we'll very quickly be able to use at least half of that ice. Well, not just use, but need half of that ice just for Norfolk Minor Hockey programming before you start discussing adult league hockey. We don't have any assessment of that demand for adult league hockey, but maybe, between now and your September 22nd report, any further engagement you need from us with regards to the amount of ice that we will be able to use in Talbot, there is a significant demand from minor hockey, even before talking about adult hockey. Then I would just like to add, with regards to the seniors moving to the rec center, there has been some significant discussion, not whether they should move there, that's council's decision, they're going to be moving there, but with regards to the specific utilization of assets there and what makes the most long-term sense or even medium-term sense in terms of using, the previous arena floor versus the odd. And I think, and I would certainly encourage some real discussion between Norfolk County and the Fair Board. I understand the odd's already being used in the evenings for indoor soccer. It's already being heated. It already is accustomed to having a seniors walking track during the day and could quite easily on main floor access be able to accommodate activities that the seniors might otherwise use the arena floor for at that spot and be good for the Fair Board in a time when obviously they're having some tough situations. So in Norfolk Minor Hockey Executive did meet with the seniors board a number of weeks ago now, and that came up in conversation, and we did not receive any resistance from the seniors as to preference arena floor or the odd. They thought that might be a great idea. So I think that a larger conversation with the Fair Board should be had just to find out even from a costing perspective from Norfolk County, if the arena floor isn't even heated, what retrofits and redesigns or utility costs will even be required to heat that facility for seniors' use when there is a main level heated used facility already in the odd. And I believe for the limited number of events, which are primarily weekend events, the seniors things could go in and out pretty easily to accommodate that. So I would just encourage a fulsome conversation with the Fair Board on that possibility, which, if it was successful, could then leave Norfolk with its asset being the arena floor for any other possibility. And everyone knows I disagree with some analysis on future arena demand. But even if it isn't that, Mr. Burgess talked about many other possibilities for expanded Norfolk recreational opportunities, which could be accommodated in that space. And perhaps there's additional opportunities there. So I would encourage, firstly, the conversation with the Fair Board on that, because from what I'm hearing, that is a real possibility. It may only expand the options for Norfolk County and rec facility programming at the fairgrounds property.
Thanks, Gord. Amy, you had your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I guess I'd like to piggyback on some of those comments as well. When we're talking about hockey and whether RFAB should discuss it or not discuss it because council gets final say, I understand it can be messy concerning the calls for submission or the RFPs. I say RFP so everyone's on the same page, but we're actually calling them calls for submission. However, council, yeah, so that part can be eliminated, but I agree with Gord, there's still room to contribute to the discussion of hockey and arenas and programming and whatnot. And at the end of the day, council gets the final say anyways, regardless of what this committee puts up to council. Council has the ability to just simply ignore it all and do nothing with it. So having your input, isn't a negative thing. It's going to document it. It's going to come up in the record. So I think that should be readdressed and fine-tuned, and there should certainly still be input. And the other thing, Gord, you mentioned was scheduling. The motion that was passed unanimously talks about expediting adult leagues and making assumptions about last year's or previous year's scheduling. So we know that staff know that already. So I hope that that's fine moving forward. And then the Fair Board comments, we obviously still need to make plans for the senior center moving forward in our plan B. I think that's the best thing to do. And I threw up a lot of opposition to the reconsideration and the budget motion and what was happening with the rec center, because I felt as though I hadn't done my due diligence on the best possible location for the seniors. So when we talk about the odd being a suitable option or the rec center being the best option, there were comments made about, that the odd has a lot going on with fair and scheduling and so forth. So if we had seniors in the odd, they might be inconvenienced due to the fair. Well, that's the same case for the rec center. The argument can be made both ways. So I would like to see something go forward with Plan B, including a holistic hub facility still, and that includes senior center.
Okay, so I withdraw my previous comment saying senior center is off the medium-term scope for us. Any other comments on the existing facilities status report? Okay.
Excuse me.
I'm still here, but I'm just going to plug my device in. I'm still here, but my camera's going to die.
Somebody else was speaking there?
Yeah, Chairman Paul, if I could cut in. I don't have my agenda with me, but I do have a 5:30 meeting across town. So I'm just not sure if I'm going to be needed for anything. If not, I may sign off now and leave you to your meeting. I just wanted to let the group to know that I do have to leave shortly. So probably leave here within the next 5 minutes.
Okay, Bill, let me just I'll quickly read out the two or three little points that may be relevant to you here, and then you can speak your mind really quickly. The funding application, I think we've already heard everything we need to hear on that at this point. I guess the real issue that I wanted to hear from staff was the breaking news that Norfolk was reporting just a half an hour or so before this meeting, was that the land use was being considered, the hub lands were being considered for sale. Do we have somebody else on staff who can speak to that? Maybe Shelley, did she join us today or not? I'm not sure. Bill, if you have some comment on the land use and where staff is going with their recommendation for tomorrow night's council and committee, I'd appreciate hearing something about it.
Yeah, no, that is definitely with the corporate group. I kind of thought Shelley was on this call. I don't know if she's muted or not sure if Jason Burgess is on as well. But fortunately, Paul, I guess as an operational group, that's something I haven't been involved with, so I can't really comment on that.
All right, well, go have your pee break and hit your 5:30 meeting then.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Take care, Bill.
Paul, can I'm curious, what is the concern right now that staff, I mean, you've read the same report that's been given out to council even, like what's the concern from the RFAB perspective with it? When we specifically put a put option on it in case we weren't successful, we paid less than the appraised value in the end. So staff is just doing some due diligence and presenting, you know, we've got until June of 2021 to decide whether or not we're going to exercise that put option. And there was no, you know, restrictions that were written into that contract as to what we did with the land. So, you know, it's just a matter of whether or not council wishes to explore some other options that either could make them some money or do some other things, social housing or whatever it may be, you know, before they make the decision to exercise that clause or not. So I just don't, I'm curious, I don't understand the RFAB connection with that. I mean, yes, we did purchase that with the put clause for the hub. The hub's not happening. So in order for council to exercise, if they want to exercise it right now, we just need that direction from council to exercise it right now. And if they want to look at other options that could potentially, you know, bring in some additional capital for the county and so on, then that's going to be their call. But I don't necessarily, it's not recreational based. So I'm just curious where that's coming from.
Well, that's a different interpretation than what I read into it when I saw it. You know, we were involved in the site selection, and we put a lot of time and effort into the criteria and came up with a top 5 sites. And yes, this round of funding from the province and the feds wasn't successful, but I wasn't, nowhere have I read that we were just going for this single round of funding. So I still feel that the RFAB has something to say about the site. And, you know, if we're looking at a new pool, if that was politically chosen as the appropriate site for a hub, perhaps it's premature to turn around and sell it for other use right now. That's what I saw in the conclusion of the addendum was that staff are looking at a means of extracting more value for the land, turning it into a money maker instead of something that delivers services to the county. And that's why I feel that it's part of our mandate to discuss that land use moving forward.
Paul, it's Ian.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I've read the report, and I can appreciate what your concern was initially. But if you read through it and you see the recommendations, they make sense from my perspective because it still allows time. The report still gives options in terms of going beyond 2021. And I guess from that perspective, basically, if Plan B that we may come up with in terms of the terms of reference, if it has some relevance yet to that land, then I still think we've got time the report is not negative in my opinion at all. It makes sense at how it's put out there in terms of the recommendations.
Well, I never said it didn't make sense or that it was a negative report. I was just wanting to know more about it because it was fairly late breaking news to me right ahead of the meeting. Crystal, you had something to say, and then Amy, I think, has got her hand up as well.
No, I just don't, all I was going to say is I don't think that's off the table. I mean, that's the whole piece of not exercising. We've got the community screaming at us on social media saying, exercise that put clause now, da 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 da. So all it is a report going to council to say, hey, I can't wait until there's all the retractions on social media online that suggest that we've missed the deadline for the put clause and so on and so forth. So, the put clause is in June of next year. It buys us some time to look at some other options, buys you guys some time, as long as council supports that option to go and do just that. I mean, I think that's even in the report there as a consideration. If you guys come up with something between now and then, go and work towards that end. But the blowback from the community on that choice of location, understand, is still going to be there. But that's all it is.
Okay. Amy, did you have a comment?
Thanks, Paul. I think it's just the way my hand is. I'll comment, but I'll let a few others chime in first. Thank you.
Paul, this is Gordon here.
Go ahead, Gordon.
Yeah, when I look at this, and I kind of agree with a lot of comments that were made, but that land was purchased to satisfy a community need. And through RFAB to council, that land was purchased specifically and prioritized because it was best suited to fill that specific need, which was for community recreational facilities. Now, Norfolk can determine what options it has for that land, but one of those options, I think, needs to remain to use it as community recreational facility site. And I think that's what concerned me about the report. I don't disagree with anything specific it says with regards to deferral. Of course, Norfolk should use all of the time that it has within its options to make the best decision for the use of that land and what to do with it. But where my concern fell was just in the conclusions of the report. And it says specifically staff will evaluate the following options. And those two options are maximizing sale proceeds and working to provide affordable housing options. I'm not dismissing those options, but I think also a priority option should be evaluating the suitability of the land for a Plan B recreational facility site. As the mayor just said, that can continue to be discussed to be part of the opportunities that council continue to consider, but I think it should be listed as one of them, because it isn't listed there now in the conclusions. The recommendations are to defer and to find an advisor or broker with regards to sale. Deferring is fine, but in the conclusions are staff is specifically going to work on two items. And I think that there needs to be an additional item listed there, which was to consider whether or not that property remains a target property for whatever Plan B is, Plan C, with regards to recreational facilities.
I like the idea of taking your time, and we've got until June to do this. I'm just the one thing that kind of struck me as strange in the whole submission there was that we're going to take our time to come up with the right choice, but in order to do that, we need to expedite a single source process for a realtor. And when I see expedite and deferring in the same subject, I'm kind of confused. So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to be turning around and trying to flip this land this month or anything like that. We've got until June to try and come up with a good plan for the land. And like Gord said, the land was purchased for a community need. So I'm still leaning that way to myself, if possible.
The land,
Although
to
we
be,
do
to
have
be
other
clear though,
options.
Paul, was purchased for a community need contingent upon provincial and federal funding. And I just want you to, I'm just saying this to be realistic here. I don't think you know the feeling of the councillors from the West and the backlash that happened. And I think you need to appreciate that support that you got the last time around for putting a facility out there. This is just my own personal opinion. I would be surprised, if that went through again, given the negative, community backlash against that. But again, it was purchased for a community need. However, it was purchased for a community need contingent upon provincial and federal funding that we know now that we are not receiving. And so, we also, when you look at if they're going to go out, if we do have an opportunity to be able to go and make some money off that, we also had another piece of land that was offered to us, at a far lesser amount per acre that, could also be suited. And now we've just made the county potentially, some money to be able to pour into a new facility to be able to afford it. So I think that's the part that we can't consult about this to death. I mean, it's already September and it's June. So if Sept, that's why they're going to go out and look for a single source on finding somebody, a real estate agent, to be able to go and see what can be presented. Again, the final decision will always rest with council, whether or not they choose to do it or not to do it. But to say we're going to sit back, a county that's broke, and we're not going to look at an opportunity to make money, to be able to then use that money to pour into a new facility. You just heard a presentation from one of your citizens that, thinks that putting the pool downtown would be a great thing. If it's a much smaller piece of property and it's not 25 acres, maybe that opportunity is there. You don't need as much land in that case if that's what you're looking at. And Norfolk County simply doesn't have the funds to build a hub on its own. That's a fact. And I would be very surprised, given our, current economic climate and what's going on provincially and federally. I don't think you're going to see that kind of money come around again for a while. We knew that, which is why we, tried to put our best foot forward and buy this piece and go through that process. But I think it's, it's very wishful thinking to think that we're going to see that again, certainly in this term of council.
This is Gordon.
Go ahead, Gordon.
Just to clarify, if I understand the agreement correctly, though, it doesn't have to be decided what Norfolk does by June with that land. All that's decided is whether Norfolk's going to exercise its put option at the stated values to return the property to the owners. So if it was decided by June that the value of that property was significantly higher than the purchase price, if you will, and would therefore be more valuable to Norfolk to keep rather than to give back, the decision as to the exact use of that property can be made after June. It's only
that's true, but I'm not.
The only decision that has to be made by June is, are we giving it back for the $3 million?
Well, unless we have a plan for what we're going to do with it, I will be exercising the put option. Unless we have a plan of how we're actually going to go and turn it into some capital or so on. I mean, the community blowback on that piece of property is huge, and quite frankly, I didn't see a lot of support behind us on that. I didn't see a lot of defense from even the RFAB committee on that piece of land. And I, here's an opportunity for us to go and look at some other options. If it is an affordable housing project or something, if there's an opportunity then to use a portion of that land for a pool, if that's what it comes down to, then that's awesome. That's great. But to say we're just going to hold the land without a plan past June, I can't in good conscience do that when that's why we specifically structured a put clause to be put into there.
Would it at least be fair to add to the conclusion of what is going to be considered and evaluated over the next period of time, that whether or not that property fits within a plan B for Simcoe's or Norfolk's future recreational facilities is an appropriate use of that land?
That's what I said. I don't think there's anything.
And you did say that. And you did say that, and I agree with that. What I'm saying is it's not in the report.
there is a mention of a recreational piece in there somewhere, I'm sure.
Yes, it is not. It is not in the conclusion of the report of what staff will evaluate.
Well, I think that's better than
let's keep
staff
the rules.
evaluating it for the RFAB committee to evaluate that.
Fair enough. I just think that direction of that possible consideration of that site for recreational use.
I'm happy to move that at the time forward. I think it's not meant to be so restrictive. It's buying time, and if RFAB wants to talk about that between now and June, if council supports that direction, that doesn't bother me in the least.
Well, I did pick up on one thing you did say, Crystal, and that was that there's good potential to pour that money into a new facility, and maybe we can trade a piece of used gum for a new Porsche in the end.
You got it.
We can keep doing that. But at this point, anything that can help finance a new facility is welcome news. And I do acknowledge the political blowback on that site. And I would point out that we had a number of sites all evaluated. And, you know, I would hope that council would look at those other sites, and maybe we need to evaluate some degree of public consultation a little earlier on in the process.
I think that's a great idea, Paul. And if I could, just one last thing to that. You evaluated that site. Remember, one of your criteria was that significant amount of land, right? The 25 acres. So, you know, that site was chosen as the preferred site based on those criteria. Now, if we're looking at a pool or a pool/senior center, if it's a phased-in kind of thing, if it's not going to be the mega hub, since we know we're never going to get that, provincial and federal funding, or we're not going to see it for a long time, we're moving in that direction. Those criteria upon which you chose that particular piece of land have obviously changed.
Agreed, and we'll have to see where the funding starts leading on that. But I think that's all well within the RFAB's purview of reflection here during the post funding announcement. Does anybody have anything else to mention about the land use at this time? Amy, I think that's your hand this time.
Yes, it is. I'll make it more clear next time. Thanks, Paul. I guess I'm kind of just talking off the top of my head here, because I've read the report once very quickly, and I really haven't had a lot of time to digest the options and so on. But I feel two things. I feel very strongly that RFAB should be able to weigh in on this, and it's not giving you an option to do that. Yes, we're throwing it around right now, but formally it's not been presented. There really isn't staff here to ask questions of, and I don't feel comfortable with that, because once that's gone, once an option selected from council, there's no going back on this consultation aspect and communication aspect. So that's the first thing that I don't like about it. We don't have a plan B, so we're maybe holding on to a piece of land if it might work, or we're maybe going to hold on to a small piece of the piece of land for the pool or whatever it is. I also don't like that. It feels very piecemeal. And obviously, COVID has not allowed this group to do that, but other aspects of the plan are still moving on in this siloed approach. Not in step, not in concert with other parts that I think are meaningful. And then the last thing I keep hearing about is, these are options that are going to give us time. And if I'm being completely frank and honest, I don't feel as a council member as though I have time. I understand that the put clause is there and it doesn't need to be exercised yet. I know that we have options in front of us, but I honestly feel from a political perspective, the way that we handled the blowback on this particular piece of land was articulating that put clause was there. And if I go ahead and use this land for anything other than what it was intended to be, or turn around and do something extra with it, it doesn't feel right to me. It feels as though I'm going back on my word now. And so I don't know, but I fear that other council members might feel the same way. And without your input, I feel like we're going down the road here to make a decision without all of the elements. So I would really like for this group to be able to read the report in full and provide some comments to council before we go and make a decision. Again, I'm just speaking for myself here, but I feel this need to follow through on my word and my commitment to the community, which was exercise the put clause if the funding doesn't come in, or use it for what it was intended. So I really, really would appreciate RFAB's comments with regards to this. It feels rushed to me and incomplete.
Paul, I just wanted to add, I just want to piggyback on Amy's comments, and I agree with her. As a member of council and part of the RFAB is that the put clause was very, was put in there for the public to know that if we weren't successful with the funding, that this land would then be returned. And again, I also feel like I'm going back on my word to the public. So I do feel that it's very important that RFAB has some consultation in this process.
Okay. Gord, I see your virtual hand.
Well, in terms of getting caught up to speed and having input in a very timely manner, I think maybe one of the next steps, dependent upon our mandate expansion. I know Mr. Burgess has mentioned that staff has been considering what Plan B might look like. As an update from staff on what they have worked on so far for Plan B would be very helpful.
And Sue, I see your virtual hand.
I also think that the communication to all community members would be helpful if we all were, as a team, working together to put that out so that it's very consistent and cohesive. Okay.
Well, I know that this is put forth to be discussed in council and committee tomorrow. I'm not sure if that gives us time for an RFAB recommendation or resolution to be pushed forward from this group to council to impact tomorrow's agenda. However, you know, I think I'm open to any suggestions how we can express this moving forward to council. And I'm looking to the three councillors who are, or the two councillors and mayor who are on this meeting right now.
Well, why don't you come and make a deputation? I'm sure the support will be there. I mean, you have half the council members on the committee. So.
Yeah, if I could put a deputation. Is Angie still on? Am I too late for a deputation for tomorrow, or?
We can get, I mean, council will just have to waive the rules of procedural order and add you on at the day of. But like I said, I'm sure you will have the support.
Okay, well, I'll figure something out then, and I'll come and try and visit you guys tomorrow.
Is another option, Paul, and through to the mayor and the other councillors. Cannot one of the councillors ask for the report to be deferred until the next meeting, pending feedback from RFAB?
Well, we gave the option, Jason gave the option to the councillors as to whether they wanted to hear it at the next meeting altogether, because it wasn't going to be included as part of the agenda, because, I mean, Shelley actually, I think one night was there till 10 o'clock at night working on it to try to be able to get it done, with the idea being the agreement from staff was it wasn't even going to come forward until October, but staff tried to expedite it for council and then took a straw poll since it wasn't going to be included as part of the agenda, and council said bring it forward. So, you know, if you're unable to do it tomorrow, if you're unable to put the deputation together, I mean, I think that the general sentiment from council is still to hear the report tomorrow, to get it moving, but you still have a second kick at the can at the council meeting if you're not comfortable making a deputation tomorrow.
Can I ask a question for clarification?
Go ahead, Sue.
Could we not, as RFAB, put a motion in to defer it until the next and ask council tomorrow to defer it?
I don't think our motion would be brought until a meeting too far into the future. But Amy's got a suggestion here.
No, I'd be happy. I mean, yes, you're right, Paul. It would go in the motions and it wouldn't come before council tomorrow, but I would be happy to share with council, and Mayor Chop and Councillor Huffman would be able to confirm if that is the wishes of RFAB, that a motion was passed and carried or passed and defeated with regards to this particular subject. And as far as the expedited process for it to come forward tomorrow, I did support that, but I supported it coming forward at a council and committee meeting instead of coming forward at a council meeting. So it wasn't that I wanted, to discuss it as soon as possible. I just wanted to have that extra week in case we needed to sleep on it, kind of thing. But Paul's right, the minutes wouldn't come forward, but I or Councillor Huffman or Mayor Chop could speak to it if you passed a motion today.
I'm just curious though, if I may, what would be the benefit to not, staff worked overtime to get the report done and put together. What would be the benefit to not allowing them to present the report tomorrow, and you can still come, if you're not prepared to speak yet tomorrow at the council meeting, to still be able to come and speak to it at the council meeting? And that can be, the motion can be amended very easily at the council meeting if there's something in there that we haven't included tomorrow. Like, I don't understand, because now you're giving the public less time to actually weigh in on it as well, as opposed to listening to the report tomorrow, and the public too has an added week between the council and committee meeting, which is the purpose, and the council meeting. I don't understand why you would defer the whole report when I'm saying you would still have the opportunity to speak at either meeting.
I'm not 100% certain I completely understand everything, but to me, the report is already in the public record because I pulled it off the internet. So it's out there, and I just want to have some time to absorb the implications of the choices that are being put forth, and I definitely want to continue advocating to ensure Norfolk gets its share of recreational facilities. And,
right, Paul, but the motion won't be ratified until the council meeting. That's the purpose of council and committee and council. So any councillor or myself can easily pull that motion to be rediscussed at the council meeting. But at least it gets staff to read the report on TV, online, people see it. The public has a week, which is, again, the purpose of that sober second thought. And you guys, we can pull the item from the council meeting. I'm sure you know my commitment, Amy's commitment, and come to talk about it again. We can waive the rules of procedural order for you guys to make a deputation to it at that point. I just don't understand what the purpose would be of not allowing staff that have worked on the report to not present it tomorrow when it's not binding. No decision that we make tomorrow is binding. That's how council, that's just how it works.
Okay, well, if there's no binding decisions being made tomorrow, I think a lot of my concerns are at ease. I was just under the impression that a decision may occur from tomorrow's meeting. And
nothing
I
is
want to make sure
ratified.
that we have the chance to weigh in on this matter.
Nothing is ratified until a council meeting. So that's the purpose of council and committee and council. So first it goes to council and committee, an item like this. It gives that second kick at the can at the council meeting. It's not a reconsideration. It's not anything. It's just a council or can pull the motion at that point in time.
Okay.
Having you speak at the council meeting would be unorthodox and unusual. And while I can't speak for the rest of council to guarantee it, again, you've got yourself or myself and basically you've got a majority here of councillors on RFAB. So I can't see any reason, given, our track record of allowing pretty much anybody to speak on anything, why council would deny you that opportunity to speak at the council meeting if you wanted an extra week to prepare remarks to that effect.
And Paul, I agree with Mayor Chop. I think the support would be there for you to present a deputation at council.
Okay, if it comes to that, that certainly is the easy button rather than passing a resolution that would miss both meetings. So that's what we'll press for if required. Sue, you had your hand up, and then Gord, you've got your hand up too. But we'll go with Sue first here.
Yeah.
Or maybe we'll go with Gord.
I was just going to comment that I think procedurally that makes sense. It's consistent with my understanding. I think pragmatically, what can happen is once you've had a fulsome conversation, the fulsome conversation has been had, and then when you bring it back for an additional consideration, it isn't as helpful. So if it goes that direction, perhaps if there's a contribution from one of the counselors that's on this call right now, can just put forward that RFAB is definitely motivated and interested in playing a role with regards to the consideration of the future use and decisions on this land, and would like to speak to that the following week to make sure that this element of the conversation is not missed, and that there is an interest from this committee in playing a role with regards to this land. I think that would go a long way just to making all councillors aware that there's a role to be played by RFAB, or a desired role to be played by RFAB on this.
Any final comments on this subject? Well, I think we definitely want to have some bandwidth to consider this. So if nothing else, we bought ourselves a week to consider what we're doing here, and I'll put forward a commitment to speaking at council if required at the next council meeting. Anything final comments on the land use?
Well, Paul, Ian here. Again, yeah, no, that's fine. You can make the presentation, but you should perhaps give a deadline for the rest of the RFAB members to make comment on the report so that you consolidate the feelings.
Good point. I'll give any RFAB member who wants to throw some input at me, do it before close of business Friday, and I'll have at least the weekend to kind of consolidate and consult with you guys.
Sounds good.
All right, moving on to item 7D, the expansion update. This was meant to be the mandate expansion, and I think we've already talked about that. I don't think we need to address anything else, but I will give anybody, or I'll give everybody a chance to add final 2 cents on the process. Going once, twice. Moving on to item E, the membership renewal update. I guess we citizens need to get our renewals in ASAP, and Mr. Gardner, I encourage him to get an application in as well. And of course, anybody else who's actually listening to the meeting right now, clearly you have a stake in this, and you should throw in your application. Item 8, discussion items. Does anybody have any new business they wish to discuss? I didn't think so at this point, but I just wanted to offer it up. It's our first meeting in 6 months. I knew it wasn't going to be a short one. I have one thing. Oh, Amy's got one thing too. Go ahead, Amy.
Thanks, Paul. Not actually new business per se, but I guess maybe a question to the group that I'd like to pose has there been any consideration on how you'd like to charter out some meetings and some discussion topics on formulating the Plan B proposal? Has anyone given any thought to the structure of what we might like to tackle that?
My dog is weighing in on me right now, but I'm that, sure, I have a quick answer for you. Hopefully upon reflection here, by the next meeting, maybe the requirements working group might try and sit down and create a little bit of structure that we can propose for everybody for the Plan B process. Does that sound reasonable to everybody? And since JJ's not here and he's the requirements working group chair, I've just effectively tasked him to do it all. Okay, I'll talk to JJ and we'll try and get we'll try and start thinking about a Plan B framework and come up with something for everybody. And we clearly will recognize the political third rail that Ireland Road has become, and see what we can't do to work around those concerns as well. The only thing I wanted to add under discussion items, and this is more for county staff, is that under our terms of reference, which I just reviewed before the meeting, we're supposed to receive minutes from these meetings by email. I wondered if we could start doing that. Would that be something that Jake or anybody else could comment on?
Yes, Paul, I've been taking minutes the entire time.
Jake and his three twin brothers were all speaking at once there. Does anybody have any other discussion items? All right, we're moving on to adjournment. Can I have a motion to close this RFAB meeting?
I'll do so, Paul. Ian.
Can I have a seconder?
I am Sue.
And Sue, and all in favor, just say
Yeah.
aye.
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 Any nays? Very good. The next meeting will hold October 5th in about 3 weeks. And we'll try and have some framework for you guys and try and get back to business. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you.
Thanks.